Hello, it's just me today to talk about Microsoft's triumph. And that is indeed the first article. There's a nice long article on the New Yorker explaining what happened with Microsoft's partnership with OpenAI, which really is very interesting. And it shows the CEO of Microsoft being very, very professional and very wise, and placing Microsoft in the unusual position of really being an industry leader right at the forefront of the hottest new trend, which Microsoft has failed to do in many decades. But their partnership with OpenAI is very impressive. They own 49% of the company. They have the rights to use all the technology with or without going through OpenAI. And so they've based their rollout of Microsoft Copilot and GitHub Copilot and Office Copilot products. AI is a huge part of their marketing strategy. And so the CEO was floored when he heard that they're kicking out Sam Altman. Basically, the company is dying and collapsing with no warning at all. And they made intelligent plans to deal with this logically and rationally. They implemented them. They ended up having to go from plan A to plan B to plan C, but they smoothly and professionally guided the company over this crisis and ended up in the catbird seat. Microsoft is still the leader in AI. Everybody else is stumbling and falling behind. And Sam Altman is back at OpenAI. Microsoft now has a seat on the board. And so they won't be taken blindsided like this again. It's just very impressive and very interesting to read. And then there's more interesting articles about AI. There's an article in Computer World saying Gen AI is highly inaccurate for business use and getting more opaque, which is very interesting. This is what I've been contributing in my consulting gigs to the companies I'm dealing with that with AI initiatives is warning them that AI is extremely inaccurate right now. Large language models, when used as search engines, hallucinate like 3 to 30% of the time. So they're much less accurate than old-fashioned keyword search engines that don't attempt to understand data. They just help you find some data with those words in it, which you can then read and interpret it. Their attempt to read and interpret it is very inaccurate. But this is really shocking. When a lot of data is looked up in SQL databases, and when you use a large language model on a SQL database, they are much more terrible. They found it can do simple, basic business queries, and it'll get the right answer 22% of the time. But for more complicated queries, its accuracy plummets to 0%, which certainly fits with my experience using AI. When I'm trying to do prompt injection attacks to trick it into saying what it's not supposed to say, I try many things. And I find that if you give it anything involving anything quantitative, like give me the first 3 words of this sentence, it will give you 4 or 5 or 2. Add numbers, it can't add them. Write code, it can't write code that works. Ask it to give me the first 10 prime numbers, it'll give me the first 12. It's just amazing how bad it is at anything quantitative because it's a large language model. It's following the English structure of sentences without understanding the sentences. Anything mathematical or algorithmic, it just can't do at all. And so this, I think, is the big risk of AI. I do not think it's going to get super intelligent and take over the world. And I don't think it's going to replace a lot of jobs and create a huge economic catastrophe that way, although I guess it might, although I'm very skeptical of that. But I think the largest thing that's going to happen is people will trust it without realizing how extremely stupid and inaccurate it is. Anyway, so other people are miles behind. Google has pushed the launch of their AI, Gemini AI, out to 2024. Amazon's Q came out and it has severe hallucinations and leaks confidential data in public previews. So everybody else is way behind OpenAI and Microsoft. And they're just sort of stumbling and falling as Microsoft AI races ahead, showing that none of them have what it takes. So, which is why everyone's been trying vigorously to poach OpenAI's developers, offering them $10 million salary packages and stuff like that to get them away. And I don't think anybody's doing that yet, although that's just because of the quick action of the CEO on Microsoft and Sam Altman to rapidly restabilize the board of OpenAI and get the company back going. If they had succeeded in destroying the company, as the previous board tried to do, then all the developers would be fleeing to all the other companies, which would be good for them, but it'd slow down the progress. Anyway, so Citrix Bleed is this serious vulnerability in gateway devices on networks that if you'd been patching your stuff regularly, you'd be okay, but a lot of people haven't, and now many people are getting hurt by it. And Kevin Beaumont has a very good article about it. A very prominent researcher saying he's very worried about this. And what he says, he's very concerned about the ransomware groups. What's happening is groups of teenagers are making large amounts of money by using simple exploits like this and spreading ransomware. And he says it's unsustainable. And these groups are going to cause, he thinks they're going to cause a series of major global incidents that impact civil society and governments themselves, as the critical infrastructure gets taken down by these sort of teenagers just playing games and getting lots of money for it. And he thinks we really need to take serious action to prevent it. And he's now calling for outlawing paying of ransoms, which I think is not at all possible to do in the short run, but it probably would work in the long run. I think this definitely is going to be the big security issue of the next year or probably several years. And so that's, and it gets me to this one here. See, this is something I've learned now. I'm doing consulting for more companies. I'm discovering how bad it is out there, which I've heard rumors. Many people have enormously vulnerable systems because they have a lot of legacy deployed services that were deployed long ago when people didn't think about security. And it is economically impossible to go secure all that old stuff. All you can really do is change your policies so your new stuff is better and wait for the old stuff to reach its end of life and be retired. So right now, critical infrastructure services are very vulnerable, and there is no practical way to lower that vulnerability significantly in the short run. So but I realized, this is not an occasion for panic. What it means is the same as so many other problems. Consider the criminal justice system in America. We take people and lock them up and brand them as a felon so they can never get a real job. They can never get a house. We put them in a prison that is poorly regulated. That is just a place where gangs kill and torture and rape each other. And so you have to join a gang just to survive. So all we do is create a person who now can't have a normal job, and all they are is in a criminal gang. So when they come out, they will just reoffend and go back in. We create this problem of perennial criminals, and then we have to hire all these police and everything and court systems to deal with them. So if you don't solve a problem with an effective preventive measure, then you have to pay for very expensive responsive measures. And that's what we're doing. So, it's not necessary to panic. It's just what we do in many areas of life, like the American diet. We eat too much fat and sugar, we get fat, then we have diabetes. So we have a ton of hospitals and medicine to give us the treatment that we wouldn't have if we'd practiced more prevention. And another example of that is there was a study showing that 20,000 Microsoft Exchange servers are running code that's more than 10 years old, out of date, unpatched, and vulnerable to attacks. This just happens a lot. So the fact that all these things are pretty much sitting ducks doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It just means that you have to have another layer of defense after that, like administrators. So what it really means is job security for security professionals like me and my students. Since we do not, in fact, practice effective hygiene on networks to protect them with preventive measures, they have to hire a whole lot of security engineers everywhere to respond to these problems and patch them up, and that's what we're all doing. So anyway, in the same spirit, it's from our distance, it's possible to see what's going on in Israel, which was not easy to see when the same thing happened to us after 9/11. So Israel, now it's come out that Israel totally knew exactly what Hamas was going to do more than a year ago, and they ignored the warnings and didn't prepare for it. So they allowed October 7th to happen. In fact, Netanyahu was funding Hamas, just like we were funding Al-Qaeda. And so the trust in Netanyahu has fallen to 4%, which is pretty spectacular. He's that I've never seen a number like that everywhere. And then the other thing is what they're doing is this brutal attack of Gaza, and it appears to be have no logical end and no logical sense, as they just slaughter vast amounts of innocents, thus create, I'm sure for every Hamas member they kill, they create 10 more by killing all these innocent civilians. So people will now want revenge. And this is, people try to say sensible things, like the president of France said, I've heard that, I saw an article that said they killed They've killed 2,000 Hamas fighters so far, and there are more than 10 times that many available that need to be found and killed if you want to kill them all. You can't possibly kill them all. And that's what he said. He said it'll take 10 years of war to kill them all. And that's what happened with us. We spent many years at war with the wrong nations over a 9/11. Very self-destructive, and Israel's doing the same thing for the same reason. Your people are injured. They demand that you do something. You have to appear to be strong. So, as frequently happens in politics, doing the wrong thing makes you appear to be doing something. Even doing something counterproductive that makes it worse still makes people feel like you did something. So it is interesting to watch. There's no simple answer. Anyway, there's a couple more little things. There's an article about gossip surveillance, which I didn't know about, in The Guardian. Apparently, this is now a trend. As you know, as the internet's out there, you can reach people. So what people will do is go to like a coffee house, and they'll hear the people next to them gossiping about how we didn't want Susie to come to the party, so we moved the party to a day when she was out of town and told her we had to have it on that day. But that was a lie. Ha, ha, ha. And people hear this, and then they're posting on TikTok, hey, if there's Susie in this town with friends that look like this, then you should know that they're not really your friends, and they're gossiping behind your back, and they're spreading this kind of stuff, which of course was never intended to get to the person they're making fun of. So that person finds out, and people are discussing whether this is actually beneficial. This is called gossip surveillance, and apparently a lot of cases where this happens. And some people say, I'm grateful to find out that my friends are stabbing me in the back. Other people say it's just causing people to get very upset. And I think we need a psychologist or a sociologist to tell me whether this is a good thing or not. It certainly is a new thing, sort of another form of the end of privacy, where what you think might be a private conversation can get back to people by a new way. And the last one is, I've been trying to get around paywalls when I'm looking at news articles and such with the Internet Archive, or the archive site, archive.ph, and I've been baffled how other people can use it and I can't. And I finally found out why. Archive.ph poisons DNS requests from Google servers and Cloudflare servers. So you have to put in your host's file a hard-coded IP address for archive.ph if you use those servers, which I do, and then you can use it. So now I feel better. I was very confused by the fact that sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. And now I have the solution. So anyway, those are the stories I've been reading. That's all for today, and I'll have another one of these on Friday.